Fiction worth getting into or not? That's the series, okay? And in this series, I will be discussing many different fictional worlds that are worth getting into, and maybe some that are not. The final verdict of that will be discussed at the end, but the journey to the final judgment, I'll share as much as I can about the story from my experience and what I've dove into. I'll do my best to not have any major spoilers. There might be light spoilers. So stay tuned. I will give you another warning before those things happen. But also, I'm going to dive into everything surrounding the fictional worlds and lore itself, because there's plenty of great universes and worlds written and told and built, but some, due to the community surrounding them, or availability to the content, or maybe some other factors, will play a role in whether or not you should take the time to get into these worlds and get, let's just say, enamored with them, and then realizing it wasn't worth it. Being a nerd is fun, but really the exploration of these worlds, there's plenty of reasons for it. It could be escape from your own or inspiration for your own. Something about exploring a new world is so fulfilling, and there's many reasons for it that push us to dive in. But without further ado, let's get into the first video in this series, Tales of Arcadia, a Burrito story. Tales of Arcadia is an umbrella that covers a few shows, a movie, books, a comic or two. In 2016, Troll Hunters Part 1 came out, following the next year Part 2, and then Part 3. Those are seasons of a show. But in 2018, Season 3 of Troll Hunters coming out, there was also Part 1, Season 1 of 3 Below, which is where it took this world from just being Troll Hunters to Tales of Arcadia, and having that umbrella and then subsidiaries underneath it. Then Part 2 of 3 Below came out the next year, and the next year a show called Wizards, and then the year after that, the culmination of it all, a movie entitled Rise of the Titans. I got my start with the TV show of just Troll Hunters, so that's where I'm going to start, and in a way this might seem like a review of that show, but I promise it will lead to the lore and the world itself by the end of it all. Now, this is a world that flies under the radar for most people. I would guess most people maybe haven't heard of it, and especially since it's been some time since it came out, and they don't really put too much content out there, but we'll get into that. That being said, though, I think it's a bit of a shame, but completely understandable. The watered down and underexplained idea of trolls and high school kids can be a bit odd and uninteresting by the sound of it. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and maybe that alone would intrigue you. For me, that summary does not do it. So how did this happen? A fictional world of no interest to me ended up being something I wanted to make a video on. Well, one night in 2016, living in my parents' basement, I decided I would throw on a show in the background while editing some videos. Then pretty soon I was doing less editing and more watching, and then I was doing more watching than sleeping. Then the season was over, and it was the next day, and I immediately had to look up when the next season was coming out, and that was Season 1 of Troll Hunters. It hooked me. I loved this show. As a whole, I loved it. Counting down days until the next season, buying a book or two, I can't remember exactly what I dove into there, but why? How did I get hooked? Well, the journey and the way the story was shared to us as viewers felt like we were the main character. Sounds odd, but typically in a fantasy story, if you are familiar, you know the characters that you're reading about have grown up in the world that you're stepping into. They know a bit about it that you don't. In this story, though, the main character, Jim Lake Jr., and his friend Toby are stepping into a new world too. So you're learning together. You journey alongside of them as if the POV of the camera is a third friend of silent, non-functional proportions. It makes the process of learning and gaining info on the lore that much better. Instead of just that regurgitating and lore vomit as we most have seen in some subpar content. Instead, this is sprinkled throughout episode by episode, and it makes it super palatable. But the top 10 quality writing doesn't stop there. The lighthearted jokes and funny moments mixed with meaningful character development were enjoyable for the majority of the Trollhunters show. The lore, ever growing throughout, didn't feel like they were adding on to the lore at will and on a whim. Some of you might be able to think of modern day examples of that. Rather, it seemed to be carefully scripted and constructed from the beginning, as if they knew the end before they ever wrote the beginning. The execution of Trollhunters is still, to this day, one I admire and would rank among the top ever in fiction. But the story doesn't stop there, and the lore goes from a fantasy to a blend of sci-fi and fantasy. Which I know those terms seem redundant, but think of it as if you combined Lord of the Rings with Star Wars. They went from trolls with a knight in shining armor to aliens and combined the two. This is where the show lost me a bit, and the lore and the world. Introducing a lesser quality in all the categories I commend Trollhunters for, the show in Three Below was not my cup of tea. In fact, it wasn't even a lukewarm cup of water on a hot day. Maybe that is a flaw in myself of drawing way too close to the Jim Lake story. I found myself okay with the ending of Trollhunters the way it did. That I didn't need more from the world and universe or characters. It gave me everything it needed to and more. It could rest and know it was near perfect in every way. Turns out steering away was quite the good decision. This is not this toxic Star Wars fan perspective, just that I am a Trollhunters purist through and through. As I saw more Tales of Arcadia shows and the movie coming out, I saw more and more that they stepped away from the original show in every way. I couldn't get on board no matter how hard I tried, and I don't think I was the only one. On that, I will not spoil anything, but warn you that if you do step into the world of Arcadia, that you should be wary of the culmination of everything. This is a dangerous path that is widely accepted as a tragedy by most of the community. It was a genuine, misguided decision, and the story's ending featured in Rise of the Titans. Let's try to look at the details, though. But like I said, I will do my best to do no major spoilers, maybe some light spoilers like the name of future characters or mentioning their arc, but I will not reveal the results of the story in exact detail, so don't be afraid. Which is really what I want to hit on, though, is the story and the summary of this young teen, Jim Lake Jr., being thrust into a world that exists beneath his very feet that he had no idea existed. He reluctantly takes on this mantle, which leads to the great growth of character and sacrifice one must make to save the world and protect those you love. Jim, as a main character in this show, is phenomenal. His internal struggle through so much of this story is quite well articulated and shown. I will say later on in the other storylines in Rise of Titans, he falls off a bit. And as far as the original story of Trollhunters, he's incredible. The side characters added along the way are wonderfully done as well. No character is the same as the next. They each stay in their lane with their own character development. Each character has a journey to go on as to their relationship to Jim or the world itself, or maybe their long, illustrious history drags them in. They each go through development of character that isn't cookie cutter from one to the next, but it's as if the creators spent time truly creating a person, all the way from the smallest molecules and atoms to the ideas to the internal struggles of their own based on their life experience. One thing the show gets right that hits me right in the feel-good station of my brain is the villains. I'm a sucker for a good villain, and I believe in order to have a great protagonist, you have to have a great antagonist. We get a wide variety, each with different motive, plot, and dynamics. Some of the strong, burly type, some of the wiry, intelligent, and some of the tragic circumstance they find themselves in is an enemy to the protagonist, just by happenstance. That being said, the best of these to me is Angkor Wat. Like I said, major spoilers aside, this story arc and the way this character is tied in might be the best show writing of a character and lore I've ever seen. Now, I could make that claim about other villains in this, and across the board in some other fictional universes, but something about Angkor Wat really stands out to me. If I had a better array of vernacular and was more eloquent in speech, I could perhaps put my thumb on it, but it really just boils down to the writing. It's beautiful. There are several characters that I could go on about in this show, but let's move to the situations and circumstances the different characters actually find themselves in. You know, the conflicts, climaxes, and resolutions. They're all well written and very rarely feel like filler, even when they are. Which is saying a lot, considering most animated shows of this nature have an exhaustive amount of filler. One thing this show holds above many other fun animated shows like itself, the events that occur are a wonderful mix of triumph and defeat. The show will bring a tear to your eye and a good belly laugh without being over the top. The plot of the show Troll Hunters in its entirety is truly a work of art. And like I said before, it seemed that they constructed the end before they ever constructed the beginning. And Troll Hunters Tales of Arcadia, it seemed to be so well done. It's like my mom's chocolate chip cookies. They're better than anybody else's. The secret ingredient is truly love. She makes them with love. She loves me, she loves people, and she wants to make people happy with this. And when you do love something subconsciously, your conscious actions are going to be heightened and delicate and dedicated. But when you're doing something monotonous, robotic, redundant, cookie cutter, subconsciously to the conscious, it's going to show up. And I think that's what happened with Three Below, Wizards, and Into Rise of Titans. I don't know if it was a money grab. I don't know all the details behind the exchange of the show and conversations had, but to go from something as great as Troll Hunters to falling off fairly quickly, I would say it is a tragedy. But enough on the show. Let's just continue down the path of the world as a whole and how easy it is to dive into as far as content, lore, and so on. If you're like me, when you dive into a fictional universe, you look for content surrounding it. I always want to become a nerd right away, especially if it really intrigues me. This show and other animated content is held and done by Netflix, so that content is really fairly reasonable to access as far as all the shows and movies. This world has books and comics that you could, invest time into, but they'll hold you over for a while, but not necessarily anything long-lasting when you compare it to something more strong in the fictional worlds built today. I will say the book that inspired the show is a bit different. The show definitely seems to go a different direction than what that book originally was. In a way, it's still super interesting, but it won't give you any intel on the lore or fictional world itself, as they are and seem to be quite different as far as storylines go. But the other books and the comics, as far as I know, are very good. They're something worth diving into. Their lore in there is something that you can hold on to and enjoy. But because there's not a large quantity, that you might run out quickly and become an expert pretty quick. The YouTube channels that cover the lore inside of the world of interest for you, in this case Troll Hunters, for my search there are not many. Most of what you'll find is a bit older, which ties into the fact that new content currently isn't being released by Netflix and in the Troll Hunters Tales of Arcadia universe. You also won't find much for explaining lore rather than videos that discuss the rise and fall of the world itself, much like I've described. Like I said, no new content has been pushed out to revive this community, even though through my current research I see rumors of more to come, but I would not hold my breath. If you want to know more lore, you will have to dig through a wiki page, and that's mostly it, which requires a bit of mindless reading, which is some people's thing, but not necessarily mine. Real quick break from the video to say this is a new series, and I am hoping that you enjoy it. I'm hoping that you love it. I would really appreciate a like on the video. This script took a long time to make, as well as the editing process and so on takes a lot of work, and obviously I do this myself, small channel. But I would really appreciate you liking the video, commenting down below your thoughts and if you've gotten into it. Also, if there's other fictional worlds that you want me to do a video like this on, it'll take time to maybe research if I'm not into them already, but I will do my best. I'm hoping to release one of these videos a week for you, and I look forward to it. It's super fun. I love diving into fictional universes, so leave some suggestions down below. But ultimately, your support means the most. Share the video, comment, like, and most of all, subscribe for videos like this in the future. You guys are great. I appreciate it. Back to the video. The community of Troll Hunter fans does seem like a great community. In the modern area of toxic communities or fans that are honest being labeled as toxic, it seems this one is genuinely fairly decent. But I would say due to the lack of content has rendered the community fairly quiet. I would say looking at the Reddit for it might be the best place to find that community. As I said, the YouTube community seems small and not active. So if you're looking for that sort of thing to journey with people, I would say the toxicity level is fairly low. You'll enjoy your time. But the activity level is just as low. Though there could be some old Troll Hunters geezer waiting on that Reddit for you to spark up learning and fire them up again. Make that post and see how many people will respond. So, is the Troll Hunters world and all of the lore of Arcadia really worth getting into as a whole? After all of this? This breaks my heart, but I would say no. If I could recommend the Troll Hunters show, I would yell it from the rooftops to watch it again and again. But this is about the whole, not just a part. This is about the lore and entire world and universe created, not just one show. You are looking at a once utopian, blissful experience that, due to an apocalyptic-sized tragedy, has left us trapped beneath the great what-if rubble. Lack of content explaining the lore, the number of books being fewer than what would hold your attention for a long time, and only one good show out of a few attempts and more content will leave you a bit empty. And at the end of the day, and maybe a bit of anger at the letdown. I can't recommend something so unfulfilling. Again, the lore of just the Troll Hunter show will give you such satisfaction, you may lose a sense of time and space only to be let down tremendously when that lore runs out and you have to move on to Three Below and Wizards and Rise of Titans. It may just leave you wishing you could go back in time and not begin. But perhaps it is better to love and loss than never to have loved at all. I would say, as my title describes, Tales of Arcadia, a burrito story. One comparison, this show is like eating a burrito. That first bite filled with rice, steak, guac, sour cream, salsa verde. As you continue enjoying it bite by bite, you get into the second half and find out all the refried beans ended up piled up in one spot. And each bite now filling your mouth with mush and tortilla. So when the burrito is done, that is the only flavor you remember. And it's disappointing. If you want a good show, watch Troll Hunters. But if you want a good fictional universe to get into, this isn't it. Thanks for watching. I look forward to making more videos like this for you guys. Please like, comment, subscribe. God bless. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.